Everyone thinks of changing the world, but no one thinks of changing himself. This insightful saying by Leo Tolstoy is a valuable reminder for all of us to reflect inwardly. The renowned 19th century Russian author suggested that we ask ourselves what God really wants us to do. As Leo Tolstoy said, "In the name of God, stop a moment, cease your work, look around you." A novel by Tolstoy is not a work of art, but a piece of life, stated Matthew Arnold, a 19th century British poet and critic. In addition to his renowned epic novels, Leo Tolstoy wrote essays and letters that conveyed the spiritual truths he came to realize in life. Along with adopting and promoting the vegetarian diet, he became deeply interested in spirituality and living by the ethical teachings of Christ. The concepts he conveyed through his writings about peace and the fulfillment of God's will greatly influenced 20th century leaders like Mahatma Gandhi and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Supreme Master Ching Hai spoke about the uplifting nature of Leo Tolstoy's work during a group meditation session with our association members in July 1997 in Los Angeles, USA.
Because Tolstoy was a practitioner, That's why when you read his story, almost a story about spirituality, about God, and very happy, very positive. It's very good to read him, to read his book. You try. If you haven't, you try. You can read more, Such thing is very good for you.
We would like to continue today's show with the insightful excerpt from Volume 2 of The Pathway of Life called On Refraining. Man can only then refrain himself from evil habits when he realizes that he is a spiritual and not a physical being. Men spoil their lives not so much by failing to do what they ought to do, as by doing that which they ought not to do. Therefore, the greatest effort man requires in the attainment of a good life is to refrain from doing that which he ought not to do. In order to learn restraint, man must learn to divide himself into a physical and a spiritual man, and to compel the physical man to do not that he desires, but that which the spiritual man desires. When the soul is asleep and inactive, the body irresistibly obeys the manifestation of those feelings which are evoked in it by the actions of the people around. When these people yawn, it yawns also. When they are excited, it also becomes excited. When they are angry, it also is angry. When they are moved and weep, it also sheds tears. This involuntary subjection to outward stimulations is the cause of many evil actions which are out of harmony with the dictates of the conscience. Watch out against these external influences and refuse to yield to them. Only if you have trained the physical man from childhood to obey the spiritual man will you find it easy to restrain yourself from your desires. The man who has learned to restrain himself from his desires will find life in this world joyful and easy. The more you combat unrestraint, the easier the struggle becomes. Between man's reason and his passions, there exists a state of civil war. Man could have a little rest if he had reason without passions, or even passion without reason. But having both, he cannot escape a struggle. He cannot be at peace with the one without fighting against the other. He is always at war within himself, and this war is a necessity. It is life. In order to esteem others as ourselves, and to do unto them as we would that they do unto us, and herein is the principal concern in life, we must be master of our own self, and in order to be master of our own self, we must train ourselves for it. Every time that you greatly desire to do anything, stop and think, is that which you so greatly desire truly good? In order not to commit any evil act, it is not enough to abstain from the act itself. Learn to abstain from evil conversation, and especially refrain from evil thoughts. As soon as you observe that the conversation is evil, if you ridicule, condemn, or abuse another, stop, be silent, don't listen. Do the same when evil thoughts enter your head. Are you thinking evil of your neighbor? It is all the same whether your neighbor is deserving of criticism or not. Stop and try to think of something else. Only when you learn to abstain from evil words and evil thoughts will you have strength to abstain from evil deeds. No matter how often you fall without attaining a victory over your passions, do not lose courage. Each effort of the struggle lessens the power of passion and facilitates victory over it. The driver does not abandon his reins because he fails to stop his horses at once, but continues to hold them, and the horses halt. Even so with our passions, if you fail once, keep on struggling, and finally you will be the master and not your passions. Every passion in the heart of man is first a suppliant, then a guest, and finally the master of the house. Try and repel such a suppliant. Do not open before him the doors of your heart. The value of restraint to individuals and to the human race. If you would be free, teach yourself to restrain your desires. Who is wise? He who learns a little from everybody. Who is rich? He who is content with his lot. Who is strong? He who restrains himself. Some say that Christianity is the doctrine of weakness because it does not prescribe acts, but mainly the refraining from acts. Christianity, a doctrine of weakness, a fine doctrine of weakness, the founder of which died a martyr on the cross rather than be untrue to himself, and among whose followers there are numbered thousands of martyrs, the only people who boldly faced the evil and withstood it. The tyrants of old who put Christ to death, and the present-day tyrants know full well what sort of a doctrine of weakness it is, and they dread this doctrine above all things. They feel instinctively that this doctrine alone will most surely destroy and uproot that order of things which they maintain. Much more strength is required to abstain from evil than to perform the most difficult act which we account good. All distinctions of our worldly estate are as nothing compared with the dominion of man over self. If a man falls into the sea, it does not matter whence he fell or into what sea. The only essential thing is, can he swim or not? Strength is not in external conditions, but in the art of self-mastery. Jubilant viewers, we hope you have enjoyed today's program on Words of Wisdom.